Hi, my name is David from Longboard Technology, and today I'm cleaning bearings. Got a few bearings here. Instead of 3 wheels, that sometimes happens. So I got 2 types of bearings here. Got these ones with the pressed in metal shields, and these ones with the rubber seals. And the ones with the rubber seals are the ones I'm going to be able to be cleaning today. You should know how to get the seals off. If you don't, this is what I do, is I get a push pin and I bend the tip a little bit so it's like a little hook. And I think that makes it a little bit more useful. And all you need to do is just carefully get underneath the shield and pull and pop it off. These are the shields I've gotten off already. And sometimes it's tricky. Sometimes, with the hook, it's kind of nice because it goes into a lip. So you kind of get it under the lip and then twist it and work its way around. So, anyway, I use a push pin. You can use any number of things. The main thing you want to watch out for is bending. They're reinforced with a piece of metal. And so if you bend it, it'll stay bent. It doesn't bounce back. So you have to watch out for bending your shields, but they're really easy to get off. And this is what you get in your bearing. All right, so here's a look at the inside of the bearing without the shields on, and you can see my little pick I use. See how it's bent a little bit at the tip. Anyway, see this is filled with the grease. There we go. I got some. Come back. It's filled with it's a pretty thick green grease. I believe that most bearings actually come with a grease inside them, aside from probably Skate branded bearings are going to come with grease inside them. And when they get dirty, grease can be a little bit difficult to remove. Of course, there's all those sorts of ways to clean them, and that's what I'm going to going into right now. There's a number of ways that people actually clean their bearings. One common thing to do is actually get like a bowl, stick the bearings in a bowl, and soak them however long. Another is to get like a bearing cleaning kit, which assembles the bearings on an axle or a bolt, and that's usually in a bottle where it's shaken up and agitated. The solvent to actually clean the bearings is usually either something. See, I've got a bunch of examples here. So one of the very common ones is solvents. Chemical solvents, like this is alcohol, so it's a mild example, but this would be anything from alcohol to acetone, brake cleaner, paint thinner, lacquer thinner, all that sort of stuff. This stuff will alcohol really won't. It's not a really good solvent like the others for grease, but the others they'll just strip the grease right off stuff. Super easy. But I've had problems, once you get the grease off, they'll leave grit still stuck in the bearings sometimes. Depends on how you do it. But that's the problem I've had with solvents, aside from the fact that they're chemicals. The other stuff you can use is stuff like dish soap. And dish soap is really nice. It's a pretty strong degreaser, and it works super well. It's a bit bubbly though. So if you're shaking, if you're making a mixture, and you're shaking it up like on a bearing kit, probably gonna be too many bubbles for you. So you're probably gonna want something more like Windex or an orange cleaner. The Windex has ammonia in it, and that's a strong base, and that will act as a degreaser. Another thing I like to use was actually dry dish detergent. And what I liked about the dish detergent is because it was a powder, what it would actually do is I could get it in the bearings and then roll the bearings, and this powder would, because it doesn't dissolve right away, would push the dirt out of the bearings before it fully dissolved. But that was I felt like it had the best results out of all these as far as how clean the bearing would get, short of scrubbing it to death with a toothbrush. But it was almost as much work as scrubbing it to death with a toothbrush, so I quit doing that. And then the other thing, which not many people use, but I recommend having in your arsenal, mineral oil. You'll find that oils will dissolve other oils or greases. if you have a nasty grease that just won't come off stuff, you can dissolve it in the mineral oil and then wash the mineral oil off, and it gets rid of it a lot easier. But none of these methods is what I use today. What I actually use to clean my bearings that I found has really good results as far as how clean it gets, how much grease it gets out, how much dirt it gets out, and how quickly I'm able to do it, is actually this. That's the magic tool right there. So these are water nozzles. Sure you recognize that, and you're probably thinking, oh no, he's going to try to use water. But let me show you. So you can use this method with the water using, you can just hold the bearings by hand and clean them one at a time, or you can stick them on a rod. And this is a 3/8 inch bolt, and these are 10mm bearings, so it's a 3/8 inch bolt for 10mm bearings, or it's, I believe, 5/16 inch bolt for 8mm bearings. I space them out with the bearing spacers, which are these, and if you don't have bearing spacers, you need to get them, because bearing spacers, in my opinion, are more important than even cleaning your bearings. You know, more important to clean bearings is bearing spacers. Okay, so if you don't have any, get them. So I put them on. Oops. I just stack them up, and I use a spacer to get it away from the bolt head here. And I'm just going to do 8, because most of you are going to be doing 8. Here we go. Come on, I can do this. So I stack them up on the bolt like that. And that's ready to go. So that's ready to be cleaned. But I'm not fully finished yet. Check this out. So you don't want to forget to clean your shields. And as well, I also think it's a good idea to clean your spacers, even though they don't get very dirty. But yeah, so these shields will get really dirty, and you want to clean them too. And you don't have to use the method I'm about to show you, but you should not use chemical solvents. Alcohol will be fine, but things like acetone will be really bad. Because they'll degrade, well, maybe not really bad, but they will degrade the rubber. And speaking of which, the alcohol, or acetone and solvents like that, will also degrade any bearings that have a nylon ball retainer. So if your bearings, none of mine have nylon in them, but these cages can be made of nylon. And if they are, you don't want to use solvents at all. You want to just stick with soaps, or just water, like what I'm going to be doing here. So you want to clean your shields too. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of these shields, and I've got another bolt here. I'm just going to stick them on the end of this bolt. I use the bolt to hold them while I clean them. And I suppose it doesn't even need to be threaded. Make it easier to get on. Alright. And then just so that they can't fall off, grab one of these wing nuts here. Because yeah, you don't want to lose your shields, and they're so small you can lose them. So just so they can't fall off the end, I'll put this wing nut on there, and they can't come past the wing nut. I think they could come past just a normal nut, so I grabbed a wing nut. So yeah, there we go. That's ready to go. This is ready to go. Let me show you how this goes down and why it works. What I'm actually going to do, I'll just show you. Try to get into a strong jet, and then camera all wet? Yes, I am. Now, I don't know how much of that you can see or hear, but when I shoot the water in the bearings, it's actually spinning the bearing really, really fast. And so what's happening is the grease and oil is all moving around and being pulled away, and then instead of being dissolved, it's just being pushed out by the water. And so this does an incredibly good job of not just getting rid of the oils and the old greases, but it'll knock out the dirt just as well. And that's just because of the fact that the bearing is spinning super rapidly while it's being agitated. So there's no places left for stuff to get stuck in there. And I don't know if you can really see, I didn't get all these bearings really good. I'll do a little bit more here, but just to explain, I'll show you again. Watch for the bearing spinning super fast here. So you can see, these got pretty good and clean. These shouldn't have any problems with corrosion. These don't need to be dried, aside from just, you know, making sure that they can get air to them. But the bearings, they need to be dried. And I'll show you what you can do for that just a minute here. Alright, so I just got my bearings soaking wet. Now I have to dry them off. If I don't dry them off, over the next few hours they will begin to rust. There's lots of different ways to get the water out of the bearing, and I recommend drying the bearings no matter what method you use. One of the things I use for drying the bearings is basically the same thing as what I use to clean them. To get the grease out, I use pressurized water. To get the water out, I can use pressurized air. I have an air compressor, so that's what I usually use. These air cans are probably not the most economical way, but for demonstration purposes they're nice. It just shoots the water right out, and it's dry. There we go. They're basically all dry now, and they're ready to be taken off. But there's other ways to dry them as well. Some things you can do. There we go. So one of the other things you can do for drying is you can actually just displace the water, and something like a really high % alcohol is good for that. So you put these bearings in the alcohol. The space that was taken up by the water is now taken up by the alcohol, and then when you take the bearings out, the alcohol won't cause them to rust, and it will evaporate quickly. And because there is some water in there, it will leave a very, very thin layer of water behind. Let's shake them out a little bit here. Will leave a very thin layer of water behind, but it'll be so thin it'll evaporate very, very quickly. So you can displace the water. There's the hair dryer. I'm not allowed to touch anyone's hair dryer anymore. There is an alarm that goes off anytime I go near a hair dryer. Just a paper towel or a rag won't be enough because of all that internal surface area. So yeah, you really need to make sure you get the water out. The easiest for most people is probably going to be the hair dryer, and you may want to make sure that you also spin as you dry it on the hair dryer, because of all those spaces that are made exposed when you spin them. Alright, so why the heck do I recommend washing your bearings and cleaning them using just water? Well, as you just saw, it was extremely fast and easy. The results are dang good. It removes not just oils and greases, but it removes all of the dirt. No other method removes the dirt quite as well as this one that I've found so far. The other is, it's great in the summer to clean your bearings with a hose, spraying them with water out in the sun. It's just wonderful. I do not recommend doing it in the winter at all. but it's great for the summer. So yeah, it does make it really important to dry your bearings afterwards, but again, I recommend doing that anyway. So, on with the video. So this is the bearing I just cleaned with the water, one of them. And you can see it looks spectacular. So, yeah, it's extremely clean. They don't always get that clean. Sometimes, oh, actually these are all really clean. I'll find one that's dirty, still, a little bit. There's still a little oil or grease on all the peaks. Maybe not all of them, just mainly these 5. I don't know if you can even see it. But yeah, so there's a little grease still in there, but it's any of the wear areas has been completely evacuated of material. Alright, so now all your bearings are clean. They roll freely, and that makes it perfect for putting grease in, or oil. I always recommend white lithium grease. It's a very thick grease. See here? It's extremely thick. And the reason I recommend white lithium grease is because it is thick. It's a heavy grease, and that means what it'll do is it'll protect the bearings more from water. It'll create a seal that will prevent dust and dirt from getting in. Did I mention it makes them quieter? I think I did. It makes them operate better under heavy load. How the lubricant works, just as a brief introduction to lubricant. When metal components rub on each other, they wear. Okay, and that's what the oil and grease is there to prevent. How it does that is when a bearing spins, it creates a flow. And oils and greases, as they're being pushed around, will begin to flow. And when things are moving, they have a pressure. This is like totally like sciencey physics stuff, okay? So if there's greases and oils and they begin flowing, they'll begin to push the metal components apart with the pressure. And that is what prevents these things from wearing on each other, because there's flowing oil stopping them. However, under heavy load, you can overcome the pressure. So imagine there's like a balloon between these or something, and I can overcome the pressure and they can start wearing again. And so oils will not have a very high pressure, and so under heavy load and shocks and vibrations, they do not work as well in protecting your bearings. So for high load, which includes, skateboarding is going to deal with a lot of high load stuff because of how bumpy the road is, and we don't have any suspension. We don't have anything to protect us from the shocks and vibrations, and the bearings have to deal with it. So you want to have to protect your bearings. The whole point of lubrication is protect your bearings, and the best way to protect the bearings is with a heavy grease, because the grease has higher pressure and prevents it from shocks and vibrations a lot better than oils will. So that's why I recommend greases. White lithium grease does a really good job. It's cheap. You can also get, I haven't explicitly played around with this stuff yet, but you can also get marine grease, and I believe that will be a lot better than white lithium grease for waterproofing your bearings. And marine grease, what that is it's about the same price as white lithium grease. It just doesn't come with a little tube on it. It comes in a cardboard tube. It's made to be used with a grease gun. Marine grease will be super awesome because it's synthetic, and it's got a really high tack to it. It's really sticky and it's really thick, so it will really stay packed in the bearing to make them waterproof. And that might be something worth looking into if you're on the coast and there's always, ocean mist all over the place, or if you just, love riding in the rain, or if you just don't have any choice, you might look into marine grease. So greases are done. Okay, we're done with the greases. Oils. Here I got, this is mineral oil. Same stuff this is my neat applicator. Mineral oil it can work. I don't recommend it. I know that some lubricants use it as a base, but I do not know enough about it in the application of skating to recommend it. Any commercial skate products will work. Any lubrication any household lubricants you can find should work as long as they're designed for metal, and that would be like sewing machine oil, 3-in-1, I believe are going to be the most common. It will not include things that are not lubricants. So that's not vegetable oil, not olive oil, not WD-40, because WD-40 is a cleaner and water displacement, not a lubricant. It has in its ingredients 10% mineral oil, and that provides the lubrication that you feel with WD-40, but it only has that in its ingredient to cover and protect metal. So it's not, a WD-40 is not a lubricant. So yeah, household metal lubricants should work, as well as any commercial skate product. I forgot one thing. Here you go. This is what I use for my oil. This isn't actually an oil. This is a suspended grease. This is its own category, and I won't go into it so much. Some skate products might be a suspended grease. I'm not sure, but this is a suspended grease, and what this is it's a grease in solvents. And when you put this in your bearing, it goes in as a really thin liquid, but it's actually a heavy grease. And the solvents will evaporate and leave behind a very thin layer of grease. And I believe the advantages of that is it has some of the advantages of the oils without some of the disadvantages of the greases. And I do believe it requires reapplication frequently. But I felt I'd mention suspended greases. It's a different category. It's in between greases and oils. It's a grease that behaves a lot like an oil and has some of the trade-offs. Just felt like I'd mention it. You should all know how to apply oil. You just drop it in, drip it in. Doop. This is mineral oil, like I said, but we'll pretend it's skate oil. There you go. Drip it in, and there you go. Put the shields back on. You're ready to roll. You can also just apply it and let it get into the bearing through capillary action if the shield's not on. And you can actually apply it, if it's an extremely thin oil, you can just apply it, on the hill or something. And that is actually one of the advantages of oils, is that they can be reapplied a lot easier. But along with that, eventually oils will escape. So that's how you apply oil. For grease, what I do is I've got this cut off at an angle, and it squirts out just a little bit here. And what I'll do is I will just fill up the bearing with grease. There we go. See, there we go. See how it's filled up with grease? And then I put the shield on that side. Sometimes I'll go and do the opposite side as well with less. I can't figure out where my hole is. There we go. It's probably enough for that. There we go. This is now packed with grease. And this one's packed with grease as well. I was a little bit messier with this one. Something else I should mention about oils and greases is that oil is faster and grease will slow down your bearing. Here, I'll kind of do it like this. This bearing has nothing in it. No oils, no lubricants. It will spin the fastest for a short time, before it'll wear out very quickly. This one has oil in it. It spins slower than this one, but it protects better. This one's packed with grease. It spins a little bit slower, but it protects a lot better. Much better than this, better than that. So it's kind of whatever you need. If you need to go absolutely fast, well, actually it's not whatever you need. You never want to do this, because this can actually wear down so fast it can be dangerous. So you don't ever want to do that, even though it is faster than anything else at first. My opinion on this, and my take, is why do you need to go fast? The difference is that grease is going to make on your speed is not going to be measurable with the tools that you have to measure your speed on a longboard. Someone that's running oil in their bearings and someone that's running grease in their bearings, they might have different times on the run, but they could easily have the same top speed. If you're skating, why the heck do you need speed for? I mean, I'd rather do everything you can to protect your equipment. So that's my take on that. But yeah, I believe that's everything. Hopefully you can get out there and clean your bearings. Hopefully I gave you enough information to figure out what's going to be best for you and what's going to work and what you have. If you have any questions, make sure you comment. I'll be able to get to you. Again, I love using the water just to jet the bearings clean. In my experience, it works the best and it's easiest. So give that a try. Don't be afraid about the water hurting your bearings. It won't, as long as you dry them out afterwards. So there you go. So this is Longboard Technology, over and out. Catch you next time.